Welcome to the first official installment of my car and racing news show. Starting off, we're going to talk about the big brand business. Porsche have reopened their Nardo race ring. I've never heard about it until this week actually, and it's quite impressive. So the fact that I've never heard about it is incredible. So if you don't actually know what this Nardo ring is, it's short for a much more difficult word to say, name. It is a 7.8 mile massive high-speed testing facility, and I believe there's about 20 tracks in total. I'll flash some pictures up on the screen, and they've broken many records here, undergoing testing of certain cars, and it allows something like the different lanes, which just look like normal roads. There's white dotted lines around the whole thing, built purposely to test at different speeds. And the outside one requires no turning in at all because of the bank that the track is on, but speeds of up to 400 kilometers an hour have been broken there and held continuously, undergoing testing on certain cars. So pretty impressive, and is now officially reopened. Tesla has broken delivery records, starting off a quite impressive shoot up in the stock price, which is cool because I actually own some of the stock. I guess the bounce, boys. And even more notably, the Tesla Model S has been given the title of Motor Trend's Car of the Year for this decade. So in 2015, I believe it won, or that's when the car launched, the Model S. And every decade, this is the 70th year that Motor Trend has been doing this Car of the Year awards. They choose the best car of every decade, and they have awarded it to Model S. Now, noted down here, I have some further details on what exactly this title, or this trophy, I guess we'll call it, is awarded. So 1949 was the first time that Motor Trend had run this competition, and back then it was awarded to car manufacturers as a whole. So Cadillac was the first winner back then. It is the most significant car of the winner. So the most significant Car of the Year winner of the decade. Okay, so Tesla, it's a huge achievement for the Tesla Model S to win this, and this includes in their criteria for trying to find what they think is the best car of the year and decade, is the advancement in design is their first category. Engineering excellence is number 2. The efficiency, number 3. Performance, value, and safety to round out the 6 different categories we have here. And 2 quotes by one of the main individuals when it comes to choosing the winner for this award. They've stated that Tesla is the future, and also that Tesla is showing more and more that it isn't a gimmick. One thing I don't know if I'll ever be able to get used to though is the fact that I watched on KO Sports. I don't know if you guys have that subscription service. Lots of different events on there. I watched a side division from the Formula E, so it was like a smaller category, electric vehicles. I can't remember what brand it was, but it was quite underwhelming to watch. Silent, and just don't know if you ever be able to match the sound of some V8s roaring or something like that. So hopefully something can be done about that, and I don't mean any like fake exhaust sounds or anything. What I'm hoping is that they make up from the roar of the engines that they do not have, it's just silence, with some type of air modification. Like, think of like turbo sounds is all you can hear, like heavy turbo sounds or something like that, transition into electric cars. But I'm not studied in how electric cars work. I don't know if they can modify air intakes and make sounds from that, but racing without the roar is going to be interesting. Moving on to the recent racing roundup. The Australian Supercars series is going to undergo more centre of gravity changes. It happened in April, where they put something like 28 kilograms of mass into the Mustang's roof, and between 6 and 7 into the ZV Commodore, if I am not mistaken. The more recent changes that are undergoing before their next event is that there's no further weight added into the Mustang, but they are removing some of the ballast tanks and replacing it with steel beams. So a bit more rigid. It's going to be up in the roof. We'll have to see how that plays out. But it's almost like they've decided that this is the way to go by computer-aided design, and or CAD for short. So doing different type of analyzing on computer devices, and it begs the question of why that kind of work wasn't done prior to bringing the Mustangs in. So if they need to do the changes, that's fine, but it's hard for me to establish in my mind what testing they're doing now that they overlooked previously to adding the cars in. I mean, computer-aided design, you can sort out any scenario that you want and test it. So, Supercars, eh? Also on that note, Nissan will be undergoing some changes. So, it hasn't had any of the ballast tanks put in the roof or anything, but they do use an aluminum block, which is different to the other two manufacturers in the racing. So they do have weight in the roof, but it is going to be moved under to near the sump of the engine to make up what would be more of that low center of gravity that the other engines supply to the cars. And maybe that one will give them some more speed, make them push up a bit more into the top ranks. The most recent drama in the racing world also comes from the V8 Supercar series. The Townsville most recent event saw a clash, or a very rainy weekend in itself, which made for some crazy things happening. Jamie Whincup, for example, one of the most experienced drivers on the field, touching the extra excess of the track there, which you would use to carry more speed out of the corner. Touched slick spot, spun the car around, something that we don't see very often at all. But the real news from the Townsville week was the first corner incident between David Reynolds and Scotty McLaughlin. On the Sunday race, the first corner, the conditions being the slick was hard enough, but there's a very fast corner coming in, and there was a clash between the two drivers, both siding near the front of the grid, and it's up for debate of who caused the incident. So it can be seen that the Shell V-Power driver, Scott, has been in the lead going to the first corner, but shut the door somewhat into David Reynolds coming up the inside. And of course, the internet all agrees on who caused the issue.
"I tried to pass him. He moved a bit and we made contact, and that's all she wrote," said Reynolds. "If he didn't move right, we wouldn't have crashed. It's just one of those things. He came down with the footage. He came to see me twice to argue black and blue in the face that he's in the right and I'm in the wrong. I know what I saw. You can see from the footage. It happens when you're racing. If I'm not going to pass him and just going to drive behind him, it's a shit sport, boring as fuck. It's just a part of the sport, man, and you've got to deal with it. If you're not man enough to deal with it, then I don't think you should be racing. If it's the passer's responsibility to anticipate and judge the pass safely, then I think Dave should be penalised for hitting Scott while leaving room that saved his mirror. It's only become an issue because of Dave's attitude and denial of blame. Of course, if Dave would man up with an apology, it had just justified the case for a post-race penalty. Erebus isn't silly. Dave's body language says it all. If he felt like he was stitched up by Scotty, he would have been straight down to the DJR garage post-race. The sooking pup will always retreat to its kennel. Then your whole team tried to intimidate Scotty. That sort of behaviour is a reflection of the team's leadership. Unfortunately, DR, or David Reynolds, you showed all us motorsport fans here in Oz last year at Bathurst that you have a degree of obstinance. You lost the race there by thinking you could do better than the team. When you choose not to listen to your team and allow your teammate back into the car to complete a race, even though you made it known that you had not slept the night before. Being asleep during a race in the pit was not a good look either. That's actually got nothing to do with this race. The gap you're looking for just wasn't there on Sunday. That's the part that's to do with Townsville. Desperado Dave, if you're still reading this, you're pathetic. Wait, I'm reading this. So David is a desperado? Better look at some of your old races, Scotty. People loved the way you dived to overtake, and remember one move on in Adelaide in the Volvo where you said stuck it. Jenga. This whole sentence is some Jenga. David was no desperado, more like this is sour grapes. And you don't win races with moves like that in those conditions on lap 1. Sorry, Dave, it was you. You do, actually.
Nonetheless, both drivers suffered heavily going way back towards the field. I don't think David Reynolds, I think he may have completed the race, but it was so far back that, the race was pretty much done. Pretty much a write-off, so to speak. And both of these drivers are near the top, or actually at the top of the leaderboard. So it was a shot they both did not want to have to take there, and impacted both of them heavily, causing a bit of a rivalry as well. On that weekend, as a support category, was the Toyota 86 Series, and Tim Brook took the win there. A race of carnage, honestly. It is awesome to watch. But Tim Brook won it. I believe he won the 2017 championship, or 2018. I believe it was 17. So, showing that he still has what it takes to do well in the series. To wrap up the recent racing roundup, we're going to finish off with what I think is the crash of the week, or most cool crash of recent times. We have the RallyX event in Sweden. One of the first corner incidents, and here it is.
Rainy Snittage, though, was the biggest loser in turn one. Sideways over the curb, a huge roll into the gravel trap for the Latvian.
The driver was okay, seeing as cars these days, or racing cars, are made very good, very solid, structurally sound within their roll cages and safety requirements they have to have, although the car sure did take a bit of a beating. As a secondary roundup, we have another clip that I've seen in a compilation. I'm not exactly showing the background of what happened. I haven't researched this particular one, but you can see in the background that a car just shoots off, probably a brake failure or steering of some sort, head on into the wall. So heavy impact there. A big crash nonetheless, but I prefer, or I rate the crash of the Rallycross event a little bit higher, as it was a bit, camera angle was perfect, get a car rolling, it's all craziness and exciting. The final category before we move on to Ride of the Week, what I'd like to cover here, and maybe not all racing fans are very aware of what happens in this world, and what I'm talking about is the racing simulator idea, or the niche here. So it's something that I feel is growing, especially as virtual reality becomes more and more, you know, impressive with technology. It already is crazy nonetheless with racing itself. But I have recently gotten into sim racing myself on the iRacing computer game service. Over here, you can't quite see it, is my simulator out the way. But I would like to cover this category because if you are a racing fan, then the computer racing scene is very much the same. Sure, it doesn't have that real roar of the metal running past you and things like that, but it's one that we can all participate in. You don't have to spend big money on getting a supercar out on a racetrack, fully kitted out to race. It's in your computer, and you can do your own style of racing. So, covering the esports scene, the Porsche Esports Super Cup, sponsored by Porsche themselves, with $100,000 prize pool on the line. Yes, I'm not joking, $100,000. You can win by racing cars on the internet, and it's super fun. The Esports Super Cup was just at Silverstone on the new Grand Prix layout, and it saw some crazy racing, to say the least, with the new track. People still trying to work things out. There was two notable tangles throughout the race. Beneke, I believe his name, second on the leaderboard right now, spun a driver by the last name of De Jong, which is also third on the leaderboard. So some pretty top contenders. This was the third race of the 10 race series at Silverstone, and intensive top drivers spinning out this close to the end of the event. And just to give you an idea of what the point standings are, how close this actually is, we have Josh Rogers on 667 points. We have Max Beneke on 658, only 9 points away. Mitchell De Jong did not finish because of this incident just gone, down on 574. We then are followed by 558 from Sebastian Job and Patrick Holzman on 534. There's now 2 weeks until the Nürburgring Porsche Esports Super Cup event is on. This will be number 8 out of 10, and as always with the big events on iRacing, it will be streamed on YouTube, Facebook, and the iRacing service itself. The Knoxville event in the late models speedway category has just been on, and we've seen 3 different winners from 3 different events, so very hot series. And the most recent winner has now taken the league, going by the last name of Bergeron. Bergeron. He's winning, all right. Josh Rogers is on route for the perfect VRS GT iRacing World Championship, racing his BMW M8 car in that event. Next up, well, he's actually just won the 6 hours of Nürburgring to take that win, and doing damn well. He's winning the Esports Super Cup and the VRS GT Championship. So what a driver, hey? Thrustmaster have just announced they're sponsoring the next iRacing Rallycross World Championship, and $25,000 will be on the line for that contest as well. Kicking off on October the 5th with a 9-race series. And to wrap up the esports news, we have Jason Galvin winning the latest IndyCar race, a thriller race, holding off that first position from a very aggressive driver that, yeah, could not make it happen in the last lap of the SimPit 200. So thriller race, clinches the win, his first ever grid pole position. So awesome effort there. That is now going to wrap up the news we have for this installment, the first installment of the show. But I want to finish off each and every episode that I make with the ride of the week, or the ride of the show, because who knows if it's going to come out weekly or not. So starting off this first one, I'll be showing you my BMW 335i and giving you a rundown of the specs. Now, if you want your car to be featured at the end of the episode with a thorough rundown of it, be sure to check out the description below and send through what I need to see to put your car on here and tell everyone about it. Here we have my 335i in the background, and let's have a rundown of what we've got going on. So we'll go over the visual changes coming up, because there's not many modifications done to the engine just yet. This is the E92 series, so 2006 year officially, and it runs the notorious N54 engine. Notorious because they can handle a lot of power, but also notorious for having lots of issues with gaskets and things like that. But most of them have been done. I've got one more job to do on this. As for engine modifications, let's start with these before we have a lap around the car. So currently, all it has is some dual cone intake. So we're waiting on a big intercooler to come down the front here, and also some down pipes, and that will allow me to flash tune it from my phone and yeah, bring the horsepower up a bit. So currently at the factory they run about 300 horsepower. I believe that's 280 to the wheels or so, so maybe 380 to the crank, but BMW like to underestimate it just a little bit. Visually, I've changed. I put some M Sport lettering on the tires. I just love the theme that it gives. A bit more tough, I guess, when the white's spinning around. We've got the colourful grille there, literally off eBay. Cost like 10 bucks. Moving around, the most recent change is the carbon lip, which took a gamble to get it off eBay. Sometimes the fitment can be a bit funny. I need to put a bit more stick down on that side. I've only just put it on a couple of days ago. I'm actually pretty happy with it. One of the cheaper carbon fiber wings that was on there, boot lip spoiler, turned out to be okay. Finally, we have 4-inch exhaust tips on the back. I have had the mufflers cut out, so a lot more loud than standard, and sure does a lot more popping and backfiring than usual. So that's going to wrap up the look at my 2006 335i. Be sure to send your ride in and get it featured on the show.